For those of us who grew up during the height of the PlayStation 2's incredible run as a top-tier console, there was probably no greater sound than this. It's true, the PS2 startup defined an entire generation of gamers, but there is one sound that was certainly a close second. Ah yes, pinnacle of platformers, best of the beat-em-ups, those warriors of world building, Jak and Daxter. And today, we're going to explore why Jak and Daxter, the precursor legacy, is one of the most beloved platforming titles of all time, in today's episode of Things We Love. From its incredibly dynamic gameplay, breathtaking landscapes, and memorable characters, Jak and Daxter is a force to be reckoned with amongst Sony's multitude of legendary era-defining heroes. The first installment of the series released in 2001 for the PlayStation 2 and was met with near immediate success. Created by Naughty Dog, a developer who already had quite the reputation for creating fun, stylized platforming games, Jak and Daxter and the Jak series as a whole truly revitalized the genre. With no load screens between levels, Jak and Daxter served as a precursor to the beautiful open world adventures that we know and love today. After listening to a pretty epic monologue by Samos the Sage, we're introduced to our dynamic duo when they decide to indulge in a bit of rule breaking by heading to the foreboding Misty Island, where we get a first glance at our main antagonists, Gall and Maya. It is here where Daxter is inadvertently transformed into an Ottsel, a half-weasel, half-otter type of creature, after being knocked into a pool of dark eco. From here we discover that Daxter's only chance at being changed back to his original form is by visiting Gall. Yes, the same Gall from the beginning, but we don't know that part yet. Did I mention there'd be spoilers? A sage who lives to the north. Far to the north. Far, far to the north.
Far, far to the north.
And thus, after a brief tutorial on Geyser Rock, our adventure begins here in gorgeous Sandover Village, where we collect power cells and precursor orbs to start our journey north.
Far, far to the north.
To Gall and Maya's citadel, running, shooting, punching, jumping, and zooming along the way. So what makes Jak and Daxter so special? And more specifically, what makes it a thing we love? Well, let's start with the obvious. This game is beautiful. From the landscapes to the soundtrack, this game embodies the word atmosphere. There are 4 main hubs in the game: Sandover Village, Rock Village, Volcanic Crater, and Gall and Maya's Citadel, each with a number of different levels to explore, with the exception of Gall and Maya's Citadel, which is a standalone level amongst the hubs. Each area and level is accompanied by its own unique aesthetic, from the barren graveyard of Misty Island to the vibrant and mysterious Forbidden Jungle. Jak and Daxter doesn't pull any punches when it comes to variety either. We've got beaches, jungles, lava, swamps, underwater cities, caves, mountains. I mean, these guys seriously pulled out the stops. And while each of these levels can stand alone in their own right with the unique enemies and puzzles at every turn, it is oftentimes the similarities that make these levels stand out. The world of Jak and Daxter is littered with what are known as precursor artifacts, relics of the past that can appear in the form of collectibles such as power cells and orbs, interactive machines like moving platforms or pillars, and even temples and monoliths, many of which can be explored. Easily recognizable by their bronze metallic color and precursor language written upon many of the objects, precursor artifacts pop up in nearly every level to remind you that while your surroundings may not be the same as they were moments before, you are still living in the world of Jak and Daxter. The developers do an excellent job at making each miniature world unique to keep the gameplay fresh and exciting, while maintaining a steady continuity that allows for a consistent and smooth playthrough. And don't even get me started on the music. Each track does a great job complementing their level. Upbeat and tropical for places like Sandover Village and Geyser Rock, contrasted by the futuristic electronic noise for areas such as the Lost Precursor City and Gall and Maya's Citadel. With each awe-inspiring scene being jam-packed full of detail, the ears and eyes are left in a state of perpetual bliss, and it's safe to say that with the release of Jak and Daxter, Naughty Dog truly gave the world a masterclass in world building. While the immersive atmosphere is very impressive, it's definitely not the only thing that makes this game a thing we love. It's now time to talk about the characters, And what better place to start than with our main gang, specifically our heroes, Jak and Daxter. Interestingly enough, there's not a lot to say about Jak, the first half of our titular duo. Jak is roughly 15 years old and assumedly lives with Samos in his hut along with Kira and Daxter, I guess? It's not really well established and not much backstory is given. He apparently has an uncle who lives in Sandover Village, as we visit him to exchange some orbs for a power cell at one point. At the very least, we know he's brave and loyal, as he traverses the world to help his best friend regain his original form, and it is stated that he has an aptitude for channeling Eco, the game's mystical energy / magic system. He seems to be a pretty good driver too, as he pilots the Agrav Zoomer created by Kira with seemingly no instruction. Speaking of Kira, it's pretty obvious from the get-go that she's Jak's love interest. He, certainly has eyes for her. Outside of that, we really don't know much about him. Being a silent protagonist, it is up to the player to fill in the blanks for Jak and project their own idea of what he might be like using their imagination. Now, Daxter, on the other hand, is absolutely bursting with personality. Much the opposite of his silent, stoic counterpart, Daxter rarely shuts up.
Are you gonna keep yapping?
Not that we're complaining. Daxter is oftentimes at the center of many of the comedic moments throughout the game. Sarcastic and cynical, Daxter's dialogue usually leaves the player laughing, or at least shaking their head. We only see Daxter's original form for a few moments at the very beginning of the game, and once again, not much is known about his pre-Otzel days. Daxter accompanies Jak through the entirety of the adventure in this game, and while not doing much else aside from riding on Jak's shoulder and mouthing off when the opportunity arises, he is a fun and likable character, carrying much of the game's dialogue with NPCs, oftentimes with humorous results.
No matter what I try, I can't seem to catch a single fish in this river.
Woo! Maybe it's your breath.
He also does provide the occasional gameplay tip or advice if the player is stuck, which is a nice addition. The bottom line is that this game would not be the same without the lovable orange furball. He's funny, charismatic, and an all-around great guy, or Otzel rather, to have watching your back. There's definitely a reason the game is called Jak and Daxter, and not just Jak.
Bruh.
And yes, the irony here is not lost on us, however, that's a conversation for another video. Moving on to some less than playable characters, let's talk about our two main supports, Samos and Kira Higai. Samos is the Sage of Green Eco and Jak's guardian. He is also Kira's father, which sort of makes them like brother and...
What?
Okay, fine, we won't say it, but you know where we're going with this. Insert OMG what are you doing step protagonist joke here.
Wow! Put it on ice, big guy!
He's often grumpy and can be seen chastising the boys, namely Daxter, in what makes for some pretty funny dialogue. Aside from his love of critique and his hatred of teleport gates, we don't know too much about him, but the series certainly wouldn't be the same without him and his detailed expositions throughout the story.
Far, far to the north.
Kira, on the other hand, is bright and lively. A mechanic and inventor, Kira's main claims to fame is inventing the Agrav Zoomer, a vehicle used to cross some less than inviting terrain throughout the game. She's often responsible for helping the player progress through certain areas, whether that's by utilizing power cells to improve the heat shield on the Zoomer, operating the Blue Sage's levitation machine in Rock Village, or sending over the Flut to specific levels through the precursor transpad. When prompted, both her and her father will oftentimes direct the player towards locations or events where they can collect power cells to progress further. While certainly not the most exciting video game characters of all time, Samos and Kira do their fair share of providing depth to the lore and expanding the Jak universe as we know it, and we definitely couldn't have saved the world without their help. Moving on to our antagonists, we have Gaul and Maya. Gaul is the sage to the north.
Far, far to the north.
And supposedly the sage of Dark Eco, but this isn't really explained well in the series. Maya is his sister and cohort, and she, well, who knows, but she's certainly a baddie and works with her brother to try and reshape the world using Dark Eco. Once more, little is known about their background, but certain phases of dialogue imply that they have both been warped by their prolonged exposure to Dark Eco, and we can safely assume that this change in their physical appearance extended to their mental well-being as well, driving them both to become power-hungry fiends hell-bent on destroying the world. Not much is known about their powers either, but we can assume they were extensive considering they were able to kidnap and entrap all the other sages in order to power their diabolical precursor robot. A battle with said robot, operated by Gaul and Maya, ensues in the final act of the game, where they are defeated and trapped within the Dark Eco silos they were attempting to open. Again, nothing crazy about them outside of them being, well, crazy, but they certainly play their antagonist role well, hindering the player at every turn and being responsible for much of the chaos we come across as we travel throughout the land. And finally, we have, well, everyone else. There are a plethora of side characters in this game, many of whom provide some sort of mission or task for our heroes to complete in exchange for a power cell or two. We won't cover all of them, but we'll definitely highlight some of our favorites. There's the sculptor and his muse.
Oh, the muse! You saved her!
The farmer and his yak cows.
Gotta milk those yak cows. Gotta milk those yak cows.
The fisherman.
You did it!
The geologist.
You two look like a couple of capable fellows.
The warrior.
Oh, my aching head.
And the gambler.
Oh, no, not another hero.
Boggy Billy.
Howdy, friends. Enjoying my beautiful swamp?
And the miners.
Hey, Gordy, I think we got visitors.
You think, Willard?
Let's not forget about the oracles either. These things always seemed both epic and a little scary on my playthroughs as a kid.
Seek the pure light, for within its flame the answers reside. You can gain my power cells by bringing 120 precursor orbs for each.
Their cryptic messages and miserly ways were definitely a great way of spicing up the lore and creating an increased sense of mystery in the Jak and Daxter universe. Not all our favorites were good guys though. Who could forget the awesome enemies we faced on our journey? There was the mini-boss, the Dark Eco Plant, Claw, the big bad guardian of Mountain Pass, and not to mention all of the various lurkers and beasts we had to punch, kick, and shoot our way through. While most of the side characters are very sparse in terms of their importance, there's definitely enough there to give us little insights into their varied and oftentimes eccentric or exaggerated personalities. And the fact that they were memorable even after only a few lines of dialogue is enough to land them on our checklist for reasons why this game was so memorable. And finally, let's get into the gameplay. Platformers as a whole are tricky games to make good at the best of times, but what makes a platformer great? Well, let's take a look. Aesthetics and characters aside, the levels and missions are incredibly well thought out. Remember when you had to figure out how to take out the cannon on Sentinel Beach and there was seemingly no freaking way to reach that thing? Fast forward to Forbidden Jungle where you turn on the blue eco vent switch and voila, the eco vent is on and finally you can give that fucking asshole bomber everything that he has coming to him. Same goes for the hidden power cell in Mountain Pass. Words can't explain the desperate need to find out what the hell was behind that rock. Come to find out, there was another vent switch in Snowy Mountain we had to find and activate in order to access it. Little details like this help reinforce the idea that this world is truly connected and open, as opposed to just segregated levels and individual areas. The mechanics of this game are another wildly successful aspect of what make the game so good. Simple yet engaging, there are a multitude of actions Jak can take along his journey. There are the launch pads that send a player soaring through the air, poles to spin around and flip off of, diving for orbs, roll jumping over pools of dark eco, even just stomping on scoutfly boxes. The game forces you to take advantage of its numerous mechanics to achieve your goals, engrossing the player even further into the playthrough. Even the vehicle missions, which even in the best of games can be tedious and grueling, are actually quite tame by comparison. Both the Zoomer and Flutflut are a unique and fun way to break up the monotony without the game relying too heavily on them for gameplay. Gee, I sure hope no other titles down the line resort to that sort of tomfoolery. And then of course we have Eco, magical bunches of energy that Jak can harness to help him in a multitude of ways. Whether you're using the blue eco to interact with precursor mechanisms, or chucking a fistful of yellow eco at whatever's unfortunate enough to be in your way at the time, the energy system in Jak and Daxter is certainly a unique way to allow the player to get in better touch with this strange and exciting universe. Something that's great about this system is that it has applicability in the game outside of just being a magical power that Jak uses to help beat up bad guys. In the Forbidden Jungle, we need to connect the eco beams in order to restore power to the village, or when we use green eco to cure the poisonous plants in Precursor Basin. These are more small details that help realize the game's world. It gives it a further believability that allows for a livelier form of engagement between player and game. Platformers are ultimately fairly simple games, but Jak and Daxter shows that with enough creativity and engagement, it can transcend a basic concept like survive from point A to point B and transform it into an exciting open world adventure, where the trials and pitfalls are felt rather than accepted, and the triumphs allow for a sweeter sense of accomplishment far beyond the usual on to the next one mentality one might normally have when playing this style of game. Naughty Dog, you've earned yourself a power cell. Jak and Daxter isn't a perfect game by any means. At its core, it's fairly simple item collection, it has camera issues along with some occasional janky controls that can leave a player frustrated, and its story isn't exactly anything to write home about. But between the fun gameplay, the wild characters, and the enchanting aesthetics, this game will forever hold a special place in our hearts. For us, it's the little things that matter.
You know what they say. Big things come in small packages.
Those nuanced and unique aspects that bring back those nostalgic memories for us to reflect fondly upon as the years go on. Is there any child who didn't try and recreate those sweet dance moves when they got a power cell? Am I the only person terrified I'm going to be gulped up by a lurker shark anytime I'm within a 1 mile radius of open water? The impressions this game left upon us are seemingly here for life, and I for one wouldn't trade them for the world. There are so many amazing little pieces that went into this absolute banger of a game, and unfortunately, there's no way to cover them all in this video. If we missed anything, please let us know in the comments, and while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe. Feel free to give us a suggestion for a thing you love, and hopefully we can cover it in a future video. Thank you all so much for watching my very first episode. My name is Bobby Carson, and we'll see you again soon in the next one on Things We Love.